Electronic identification, or EID, also referred to as radio frequency identification, RFID, is becoming increasingly popular for the livestock sector. Electronic identification is being used in cattle in the U.S. While not utilized extensively in the U.S. sheep industry, EID is used in sheep in other countries. For example, in the UK, following the devastation of the foot and mouth disease outbreak in 2001, the sheep industry has adopted a nationwide animal health management and disease traceability program utilizing EID. In the U.S. sheep market, EID as a management tool has yet to be successfully utilized on a large scale.
With foot and mouth disease, sheep show very little signs of the actual virus. And healthy, normal-looking sheep could come in here to the sale barn and be sold and be distributed 100 different directions. We need to know where those animals came from originally, coming into this place, how long they were here, and then which premises they went to from here, so that we could start pulling together all the different contact animals.
If you wear your producer hat for a minute, the challenge is that you're thinking about, oh, I'm going to need to tag everything. And so the Scrapie program has kind of helped us with that. We're used to tagging sheep, maybe not all of our sheep, but we're not all used to capturing information. And all the ewes are tagged with EIDs at birth, and then we have different metrics we record. So we record weaning weight, we record scan weight, we record the size of their lamb chop and the lowness of their back fat. And then I just go through those ram lambs and I sort them with my stick reader, and I kick some out for phenotype problems.
Accurate and timely identification of animals is vital in an animal health emergency, especially if there is a rapidly spreading disease contagion present. EID is the most reliable real-time form of identification available. Time is essential, says Dr. Jim Logan, former state veterinarian of Wyoming and current co-chair of the American Sheep Industry Association Animal Health Committee, especially if you need to know where an animal disease started and to where it could have spread.
I think that this industry needs to position itself to be able to respond and react to emerging or foreign animal diseases. And for years we've utilized the Scrapie identification program, the eradication program, as kind of a model. But as we get further advanced and more likely to have a foreign animal disease situation, which would be a disease such as foot and mouth disease that has a much shorter incubation period than the disease Scrapie, which can have an incubation of years as opposed to days, we need to position ourselves to be able to more quickly react and be able to trace disease cases in our industry. But if you get a disease such as foot and mouth disease or other diseases that can emerge that have a short incubation period, we need to be able to react very, very quickly. And that is probably the biggest advantage of the EID in enabling us to quickly trace so we can stop the advancement of a disease. Traceability is, again, finding where a disease may have originated, where it may have gone, and good records and good ID can very likely eliminate a producer or a location from an epidemiologic investigation or from movement restrictions. Without good records and without good ID, we have had situations where instead of having one place or maybe a handful of places involved in an epidemiologic investigation, we have ended up having 20 or 30 places involved simply because there either wasn't good ID or there was not a good record showing where animals had been or where they had been moved to. If we had an outbreak of foot and mouth disease, this country would immediately, through a cooperative effort of USDA, APHIS, and the state veterinarians, we would end up in a fairly immediate stop movement type of a thing countrywide. Producers, in order to continue moving livestock, whether it was to summer pasture, whether it was between pastures on a given operation, or moving to markets or whatever, would likely be required to have a movement permit before they could even move. And in all likelihood, producers would be required to have official EID to make those movements and to get those permits. So I think it's high time for the industry to position itself to prepare for such a thing that we pray never will happen, but to be prepared for it by looking into EID, exploring those opportunities, but also exploring opportunities for biosecurity, which includes EID or identification at least.
Dr. Logan says good preparation also includes good records and reiterates that official identification does not stop disease. It won't prevent a disease from occurring, he says. But if we want to be able to track a disease case to find out where it originated and where diseased animals might have moved, he says official identification is imperative for rapid animal traceability.
And with a disease like foot and mouth disease, hours are very important, days are very important, but if we get out to where we're looking at weeks before something can be accomplished, we've lost that battle fairly early on. EID would be a great boon to helping contain a disease.
Before entering interstate commerce, all sheep, except wethers under 18 months of age, are required to be officially identified. States require official ID prior to change of ownership. Generally, producers tag their animals prior to the animal being moved. But more recently, some producers have brought their untagged sheep to sale markets, a practice that is discouraged, as it is overwhelming to the market operators. It risks support for the Scrapie program, which the sheep industry has invested millions of dollars in, and has spent 20 years striving to obtain Scrapie-free status for the nation, which, once achieved, would open up important markets for American sheep products. The industry has almost reached its goal of being Scrapie-free, which is defined as 7 years without a case or traceback. At the end of 2021, 41 states have been free of Scrapie for more than 7 years, and 6 other states are just coming up on the 7-year mark.
The animal disease traceability identifies all species of livestock, whereas the Scrapie program itself identifies sheep and goats specifically for the disease of Scrapie. It's a disease that we still have in the United States, and it is getting less and less, and hopefully we'll be one of those countries identified as Scrapie-free here in the near future.
Sheep markets present a challenging situation due to the significant variation in auction market intake processes as they receive and sort sheep for the sale ring. Dan Varner, who, with his wife Holly, has operated the Delta Sales Yard in Delta, Colorado for 26 years, agrees that EID technology in the sale yard environment could be beneficial. But he is concerned with the current challenges his facility faces, particularly in the increased number of untagged sheep that arrive, many within an hour or two before sale time. Tagging takes employees and time away from the wide variety of activities that occur prior to the sale. Animals are sorted to bring the highest returns when they are sold. Lots may be sorted by weight, and a mixed ownership group may enter the sale ring to be sold as a lot, and a lot may be split in the ring and sold to multiple buyers. To discourage untagged sheep, markets like Delta are resorting to charging fees for tagging to cover the additional labor and time needed by the market.
The amount of sheep and goats that come in on sale day and the limited availability of labor prevents them from getting all sheep and goats ID'd by sale time. Some of the complications that we possibly could run into is tagging by the producer, number one. Number two, the limited availability of labor in the livestock markets to identify animals as they're coming in. I believe that visual ID is very difficult at this point in time where EID overrides that. A lot of the tags are so small you can't even read them, especially for identifying individual animals. The EID, for example, at a livestock market here just recently, we had 2 buyers mix, and we're able to sort those tagged with EID out quickly and efficiently and accurately.
The implementation of EID reading at the sale barn should ultimately increase the speed and accuracy of tracking sheep through the market system. In the spring of 2022, a pilot project to assess EID for sheep at the speed of commerce was conducted by the American Sheep Industry Association at the Delta Sales Yard in Colorado. Sheep were tagged on farms and ranches prior to arrival at the sale barn, and some sheep were tagged at the sale barn. Both Allflex and Shearwell tags were used. This pilot project demonstrated that currently there are many challenges, in addition to the number of untagged sheep and goats that arrive at market on sale day. Computer and software capabilities at the markets is a major stumbling block to implementing EID technology. This pilot project revealed that most available market software in the U.S. lacks the capability of meeting the requirements to integrate electronic ID. This is in part because the markets do not ask for it, and neither do their consigners.
There's a lot of infrastructure and things that need to be put in place to have adequate traceability through an outbreak. Currently, we've got a bookend traceability program specifically for one disease, scrapie, and we've got the starting point with a metal tag in the ear, and we've got an ending point at slaughter. We've got nothing in between, really, as far as record keeping. Every time you use one of these tags, it takes stopping the animal, reading this visually, writing it down on a piece of paper, and you got a piece of paper then that has to be paired up and married up wherever else. So ideally, electronically, the information can be captured at more than one point, more than just at the start and more than just at the finish. Yeah, we need, like I say, infrastructure to be able to capture this data on the fly as livestock is moving, and better record keeping system that's more automatic. And then we need software to integrate all that in and put it somewhere where we can retrieve it.
We have over 2,000 livestock markets in the United States. And each one of those are going to be different in one way or another. That's the biggest challenge. Second challenge I see that's really big is the software that's out there that some are capable of handling and the greater amount are not capable of handling electronic identification. So far with the read systems that are out there that we've used and set up in livestock markets, they're very reliable. They will capture the numbers. The downfall is retraining livestock market employees to be able to handle those classes of livestock that are identified with electronic identification.
EID technology is not new as a means of sheep identification for the purposes of animal health management and traceability. Many countries around the world have expanded the use of the technology to provide consumers with the traceability they desire in order to know where their products come from.
A number of countries throughout the world are using EID, some for traceability purposes, for animal disease traceability, but others because they are dependent on export markets and feel that it gives them an advantage. Today, our consumers want to know more about where their animals and their animal products come from, and countries like states within like Australia, those industries feel that if they can provide that information through traceability, that gives them a competitive edge.
For sheep producers, EID technology can provide an opportunity to improve flock productivity and profitability, as it can record any metric that can be measured. Many producers find value in how electronic data collection can save them both time and labor, while increasing the accuracy of the information they record.
So we put our first EID tags in our flock as test tags in 2012. For us, the primary benefit is time savings, and the secondary benefit is very critical for us is collecting enough accurate data tied to the individual animal that allows us to do both the management tasks and documentation that we want to do. So one of the things that we can do with the EID tag is that, one, I keep full data on every animal from birth, and I can look at a package of chops or a rack or a leg and get a code, and I can trace that back, and I have full records on that animal from birth to death.
Tag prices have come down to much more affordable. That's one reason I have considered it. You know, the more information you can put into it, the more you shall get out of your tag. It's limitless as to what you can do to it with them. So,
within range operations, lambing typically takes place on the rangeland, which makes measuring lamb performance difficult. Julie thinks she may utilize EID to identify ahead of lambing certain key parameters that she wants to follow, such as which ewes are pregnant with twins. With those ewes, she could have them lamb separately from those ewes that have singles.
So I can also feed them different if I need to, or manage them different if they're just got singles versus twins. Then I can retrieve those twin-born lambs as my mother ewes. And I think the electronic ID is going to make it easier to track that information. Well, we've used the Scrapie ID for years, and that's been a requirement. But we've also used I've personalized the Scrapie IDs with our ranch name, and we've used those numbers on the Scrapie ID, but it wasn't quite enough to really move us forward with recording the information that we needed on our flocks and on our individual attributes of our sheep, the wool, lamb crop, other things we wanted to measure. So this seemed like the next route we should go. My hope is the electronic ID makes it easier to capture more information in the future. And the things I want to measure, particular, are improving my merino ewes and their fleeces. And so I might as well be breeding my best ewes. And so I want to know the fleece weights. I want to know which ones are yielding the most, which ones are the micron I want, which ones have the most pounds per fleece, because that's what it's about. It's about pounds, it's about high yielding at the right micron for these merino ewes. So I definitely want to measure that.
EID is already a widely used technology in other livestock species, just as visual ID is used for the Scrapie eradication program. In addition to flock management benefits and disease traceability, the American consumer increasingly demands product traceability. Fortunately, over the past several years, the costs of EID have decreased. For information on sheep identification and animal disease traceability, visit the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service website at aphis.usda.gov.